Grand evening. It is 8:31 p.m. Two notifications, 4G and 73% on a lovely August 17th Thursday evening. And this is episode 7 of Barely Doing Stuff Now with Words. I have headphones on, so I don't know if that's gonna mess with the audio this episode. Also, I'm laying down. And you can see my pets behind me, at least some of them. You can't see all of the house. I'm also laying on the floor because I gave up my bed so that I could have additional exercise space in my apartment. And I was kind of grateful that I was able to do that. But this episode is going to be called Barely Perfect. And perfect, as it's been explained to us colloquially, normally means that everything is where it is supposed to be. And I often dislike using the word supposed to. But I will say things on occasion like everything is happening the way it's supposed to be happening. Or I think some would say, it is as it is. It is what it is. I say, and so it will be. Well met, regardless of what that outcome may have been desired. And I want to speak on perfection today, or at least share my experience of what perfection may look like, and kind of navigate through some conversation about that. A good amount of the time in my engagements with being alive, I tend to think everything is as it is. I tend to hold a lot of space and narrative for the universe to be operating as it is. Prior to this point in time, if I start crying, I apologize. I'm practicing vulnerability now on top of pure potentiality, acknowledging that all is well, always, always, even if I don't enjoy it, might have been some type of emotional barrier that I might have been putting up prior to this point in time. And it wasn't that I was doing it intentionally. I'm actually trying to practice being okay with everything rationalizing itself in this particular moment as it decides to come up. So in the practice of me trying to be more vulnerable, accepting the situations as they turn up, accepting the emotional output that comes up without trying to foster space for what I think I'm supposed to be doing, what I think the world would request of me more comfortably. Having a strong team of coworkers and an amazing support from my sibling and my chosen family outside of this, I am just learning really to be okay with expressing pain out loud. And that, to me, is perfect. Prior to this point in time, being the shape and size that I am, and the constructs that go with the build that I was born with, and the narrative that goes with the gender that was assigned to me at birth, being soft or in pain or in an unpleasurable experience was not the most acceptable approach to all of this. And I've been talking for 5 minutes solid now, and there's tears running out of my eyes. having what I would say a cathartic release in regard to um, not being okay right now. Because again, for me, all is well. Um, again, for me, it is what it is. Again, for me, the culmination of the universe is experiencing in itself through my experiences and your experiences, and it's not always pleasurable. So, again, I remind you, all is well, always, always. Even if we don't enjoy it, um, looking into the expression, the expressions of discomfort and holding space to be discomforted, to be uncomfortable, out loud, to be uncomfortable authentically. Um, I still don't know what to do with this in practice. This creates a great level of oof. What word would I use here? I'm still trying to rationalize how this feels. Like I'm practicing more effectively out loud that level of vulnerability. Not as though I wouldn't say that things didn't bother me prior to this point in time. I just recognize that I have a different mental space than most people, so I tend to alleviate most of my stress on my own accord, and I tend to practice from a place of enjoyment and joy, and happiness is my primary display. Um, my life as a whole has been a traumatic experience, compounded after one thing, due to my learning preference is through experience. There are some of us who are astute, who lean into reading and facilitating knowledge through recollection and retention, and I am not one of those. I recognized early on that I know the fire is hot because I put my hand in it. I know that the pan is hot because I grabbed it with my bare hand. I know the stove oven rack is hot because I grabbed it without a mitten. And each of my experiences and my lessons have been learned that way. I mean, I'm grateful to the creator, the universe, the deities that provide, and the spiritual guides that watch over me, as far as my ancestors and anyone else that may take time and pleasure in making so that I am functioning well. I acknowledge that I have been protected immensely, because there are a lot of times where I fucked around and I found out. And I'm talking about this now, this idea of perfection, this idea of what it means to be, um, to practice perfection, to practice perfect, to walk perfectly. Um, I long for a mutual understanding and engagement that there's nothing to fix, and that makes me saddest of all. That disheartens me most of all with my living experience, with the experience of being alive. When engaging with others, to practice and rationalize out loud that while I am experiencing the person as I know them and experiencing them as um, they are they are specifically a blessing from the universe, because like every dandelion, like every flower, like every raindrop, like every butterfly, they are but a moment. They are but a moment to witness, and being able to witness them in such a way is a miracle. It's a blessing. And I've been practicing non-attachment for some time. So I've got to have lots of miracles come in and out of my life, and I've got to witness a lot of um, unparalleled experiences. I've had some people come into my life and say things like, "You're going to replace me, you can replace me. Um, why am I not enough?" These are questions that are directed at me in regards to someone else's person or being. And I have been consistently reminded by the universe that to encroach on the idea of enough would come from a place of lack. Um, I don't ask anyone in my experience to have one meal and them to be satiated. Um, it's very hedonistic as a thought to say that you are always going to find something pleasurable within the next experience, whether it be a lesson, um, in fragility, or a intense and really pure um, reception of self. And I say reception of self in regards to um, you are allowed to feel how you feel about your experience. You are allowed to feel um, how you want to feel about your experience. You are, if anything at all, it is more likely for you to get your needs met in your experience authentically if you allow people to know what you would rather. And I'm not sure that we still do that yet. Like I long for peace. And I recognize through my practices that if I long for it, then it is not something that I am practicing. And I also recognize that I speak from a place of lack. Like, I am currently at peace. And the welling up of sadness that you hear in my voice right now is because I'm at peace and I can hear multitudes of others in my experience right now, in my environment, who are not at peace. I live in downtown Portland, and there are many who are not at peace here. There are many. In my experiences through partnership, engagement, co-worker, um, just there are many who are not enjoying their existence. And that could expound. There are so many unpleasurable things happening on the planet. And I think about how I want more peace, and I'm comfortably making a podcast. The sounds you hear in the background is an air conditioner when the heat has been 109. You know? I'm laying comfortably unclothed in a space that houses me, under a roof that houses me, in between walls that house me, where I can store food the way that I want to, where I can drink water, shower, bathe, where I can enjoy carnal pleasures if I so choose to, where I can enjoy a multitude of things, this podcast being one of them. And I honestly look look around this space and I feel unfulfilled sometimes. As intensely of a home gardener as I like to think I am, I don't want to be a home gardener. I don't want to garden in the house. Um, as nurturing as I feel as though I am, and how often I tend to bring people a sense of ease and peace because of the character that I display, I long to be a parental guardian. I long to be a steward of a space. Um, I desire to be a leader. But every time I look at the role of what it means to be a leader, every time I look to a leader to find strength in what they do and how they do and how they operate and what they're doing to navigate that space, due to how I am built mentally through the constructs of society, I find judgment come up. I find contention to become prevalent. I find envy and jealousy in the experience. Um, there's a desire that I have to practice and act in accordance with holding space for many. But then I make stipulations like I only want to hold space for those who can hold space for themselves. But it seems through due diligence that a leader holds space for those who do not know themselves yet. And I've got some pretty solid leaders in my life who are actively doing the functioning and actually participating in what those conversations look like and engaging in those behaviors with large groups of people, um, whether it be myself or others. Um, the sun is going down, so I may dissipate into less um, visual range. But I long to hold space for what, quote unquote, my people, in a way that says that we aren't trying to tear at one another, in a space that says that we can rationalize conversation around emotional output and contingencies of what it looks like to be oneself authentically without the judgment of another, without the expectations of another placed on what that would look like for another person's display. You know, I long to be able to have people come to me and I hold space for them to receive me authentically from a place of love. I want nothing more than to be able to hold space for people from a place of love. It always, currently in this dynamic, feels like there has to be some guard, there has to be some approach to defense before I can rationalize what perfection looks like. I am led back to the Christian, Judaic slash um, monotheistic thought of what the Garden of Eden looked like and how there had to be a barrier around that space of perfection, quote unquote, to protect those who lived inside from those who lived outside. And I hate that. I have such disdain for that separation. I can't help that I'm Scottish, Polish, and Irish, and I appear brown. I can't help that I have brown in me. I can't help that my ancestors were raped. I can't help that there were transgressions made against my family line. I can't help that there might have been people who have presented in many of the ways that might be spiritual or magical or in tune with Gaia. Um, I can't help that there's voodoo, hoodoo, and other essences that just naturally flow out of me, regardless if I understand the practices that I'm engaging in or not. I can't help that those things exist, whether it's runal practice or spell ties or any other source that would acknowledge or um, put forth to connect me as a whole, as a limited whole of the creatures that exist on this planet currently, because aliens became real several weeks ago. Um, so we have to kind of practice from a space of how do I, how do we, where do we, when do we allow for perfection? When do we allow when do we allow for perfection to take its course? When is that okay? When is it okay to be present with what is? Um, because manifestation is a practice, and law of attraction is a practice, and there are several laws. There are several laws the way that the universe operates and can be proven through practice. Um, and there are multitudes of vibrations that the universe practices and you can engage with and have an understanding of if you were to lean in and learn, that aim towards the understanding that what I see inside my head is real. The images, the view that I envisioned frequently, the fields, the houses, the spaces that hold us, those that I steward, the things we grow, the things we grow as a whole, because it is us being together, we would continue to cultivate one another, because we would be in this place of authentic expression. There would be a level of vulnerability there that would allow for everybody to be received, and everyone would have space, and there would be no need for defense, and there would be no need for offense, and there would be no need for pretenses. There would be no need. Safety would be the primary standard. Love would be the primary standard. Accountability and control would be the primary standard. But then I have these rationalizations where I think of movies that I've seen in my childhood where it's like Equilibrium, where it's like a whole city of people who just don't do until the doing becomes an overwhelming burden and someone practices outside of that. And I don't want that to be my utopia. Look up the actual meaning of nirvana. Had this conversation with someone recently. Look up what it means to be. Look up what Illuminati means. Look up the terms and phrases and the codes that have been instilled in us by the society that exists around us. Even the language I'm using is a limited language, to say amalgamation of words and sounds that can only relay so far. You know, I long for I have a clear and distinct memory of a space where thought was the primary communication style. Maybe it's imaginary. Maybe someone will make a story of my story or the stories of the things that I communicate, the things that I imagine, envision in my brain. Maybe someone will take that. Maybe this is just a story of a story. Maybe these words strung together are just me trying my very best to um, escape rapture. Not knowing if these words would be found or heard, I post these things into the ethos. I send these messages into the internet, into the web, with no real course of action to know if they will make it to their destination. There is no chosen destination. There is no, I want this person to hear this thing. I can hear me. And verbalizing out loud was one of the greatest reliefs that I was able to find. I was able to find myself, quote unquote, my voice, and the hubris of listening to myself talk nonstop after having a traumatic experience happen to me. You can go all the way to the back. I'm currently legally able to talk about it now, and I don't have the desire to put that on air. If you ever catch me in person, I am willing to communicate fully an experience that I had that would make most look at me in a different way, and I'm okay with that. People look at me in a way that I'm uncomfortable with as of now. So to think that I could change their perspective of me after an experience that I occurred, I would hope them the best after our disengagement. But I long for spaces like that. I send this information into the spaces. I have no desire um, to be fully perceived. If that were the case, I would do more. I would do more to be perceived. I would do more to rationalize getting visuals set up so that this was always, you never had to watch me fade into darkness. This last week, this summer has been interesting. A woman I fell in love with last summer passed from fentanyl. A man I'd known for a year who happened to be a light in every room that he went into, except for the ones that he wasn't a light in, because humans exist and not everyone will see your light and glory. Some people will think that they are standing under the direct rays of the sun and they will catch fire in front of you, and their fire will ignite your fire, and fire happens to negate fire better than any other tool that we have. Also passed. And this person who passed told me that they were honored to know me, to share their experience with me. And I'm honored each and every engagement, regardless if it's uncomfortable or not. Regardless if I walk away with some type of benefit. Whether I walk away as the beneficiary or not. Each time I witness you guys, each time I engage with you guys, I am. To say I fall in love would be undermining the feeling. There's not enough in that word. There's not enough explanation in the word love to note it as English. It's not enough. It does not encapsulate well how I would tend to express uh, how you appear to me. This past weekend, I was able to witness meteor shower from my limited perspective of what I think a meteor shower is, from my limited understanding for how I receive and understand that. One of the things that made me so interested in the meteor shower when I was observing it was that the meteors don't go in the same direction. You know, for it to be a shower, for it to be a experience that we're passing through, or they are coming to us, or however it is perceived that this particular meteor shower was experienced. Um, they don't shoot the same direction. Some of them are tiny little blips that don't exist for longer than milliseconds. Some of them are small streaks that exist, second and a half. And then some of them are these great big beams of light that just take up the sky. And I say some, and I mean mathematically, 0.00001 of the meteorites that I was able to witness. So one out of a total of, I don't know, I've probably seen at this point now 50 to 60 shooting stars, since that's what all shooting stars seem to be comprised of in my lifetime, and those were all gained over the last week. I had maybe 2 experiences prior to that point in time where I could identify some shooting stars. One was when I was by a log in Washington, having the most intimate experience ever. The log was on fire because we were trying to reduce a tree's size so that we could get the spikes out of it without breaking our chainsaw. But me and a past lover were engaged in a space that I have not been able to reach the heights of since then. And a shooting star, one singular shooting star flew above the sky. You guys all look like shooting stars to me. And I say this thing to people who are like me. And like does not always mean the same as, does not always mean identical to. But like is enough. It is a similar enough experience that you were engaging in, whether it be emotional or spiritual or whatever the practice may be within yourself. I say, a star does not recognize its own shine. Only the heavenly bodies around it can witness its light. Keep shining, because there are those that are near you who will never be able to tell you how much your light did to illuminate this path that they were on. There are many of those around you who have looked at you directly and have turned away from you because you are too bright. This statement has evolved as I've continued to evolve, but it doesn't negate the fact that you are a light where you are. And I sometimes forget this because of how I am treated. I sometimes forget that I am a light. I sometimes forget how perfect the world is, how perfect my experience is, how truly honored I am to be having it. But then there are moments that I remember very, very specifically, as my memory continues to fade in and out, regardless of what may be the cause of it. There are things that I can hold on to very steadily, and there are things that I don't have as much as I would like to. Like, I cannot recall the scent of my children. Scents are very important to me. I have no idea why scents are so important to me. Scent, S-C-E-N-T. But they are very, very important to me when engaging with other people. I had one ex who had synthenasia, and they could smell, they could smell malice. They could smell evil. I know there's some judgment on evil. I know there's some judgment on what it may be to present as evil, because there's a whole discussion with morality that exists there. But I can very clearly remember this ex, but not their name. I can very clearly remember them telling me that I smelled like heaven, happiness, joy, love, with a tint of sad. They said it was like looking into a marble and seeing one dark streak, but the dark streak went all the way through the marble, from side to side. It wasn't the entirety of it, but it was very prominent. There are moments that I wish I recalled, like, what do my children's faces look like? How does my dad's voice sound? How does my father's voice sound? Because those are two different people to me. What does my mother sound like? What does my grandmother sound like? Those are memories that I don't have. What do my aunts and uncles that have passed sound like? Because those are memories I no longer have access to. A memory I do have access to. A memory I do have access to that I continue to sift through to find its origin in my experience of being consciously present and awake in this reality as I talk and I cater to my own id, and I say frequently I, my, me. The memory I'm familiar with, the one that creates sadness and longing in me, is I recall a place where there was love. I recall a place where there was love only. I recall being embraced, not disgraced, not degraded, not dissuaded, not cast off, cast away, not rejected, not aggressed upon. I can recall so intensely a love so pure. It motivates my actions. It motivates my everyday engagement with the world. So if you ever experience me from a place or a state of support or love, it is because I am imitating something I recall, that I do not have a place for, that I do not have a memory of in this particular vessel. It's from time immortal, time prior to me, an existence prior to the one that I'm engaged in currently. I remember a love so intense. There are movies, there are interpretations through scenes, there are interpretations through books, where I'm able to recall such a love through the words of another, an author, whether it be fantasy fiction, an engagement where their selves, their expression has become aware of the same love, or a love, the experience of fully encompassing acceptance and acknowledgement. To think that this all exists within the realm of the thought of perfection. To think that the unpleasurable experience I'm having based upon my perspective of it is perfect. to know that, to have full knowledge of this experience being perfect. Regardless of how pleasurable it might be. Knowing that all is as it is, where it should be, where it could be. Knowing that the options and the perspectives and the choices that we get to make are infinite. Knowing that my life is no more as important as any of the lives that have been lost or are being born, but is astutely cherished by the universe. I have many phrases. The universe thought that it would not be done until it made just one. One of me, one of you, one star. Each individual one of us. It wasn't complete until we existed. If you can hear my words, then the universe did not think it was complete until you could hear these words. If you could understand my words, the universe did not think that it was done with designing itself, with reiterating itself out loud into a 3D form. The light that concentrates, that makes your mass, the energy that concentrates, that makes your mass, who you are, the experiences you've gained, the movements you make as you continue to stroll through your life, the waves you put out into the spaces you enter into, the energy that permeates the hearts of those that you're near. Regardless of how uncomfortable it is, the universe, the God, the deity, the all thought that you needed to be here. And sometimes I forget that. And I get to remind myself. We get to remind ourselves. We get to remind the universe that the universe exists. We get to remind ourselves that we're here. I get to say to you, I love you. I get to say to you, I'm grateful that you continue to exist. Because in my experience, it is very, very easy to stop existing. There are many ways one can stop existing, whether it be the loss of one's vessel, the loss of one's life, the loss of memory. I think Encanto, the movie, did a lovely job. Nope, it's not that movie. Maybe it is that movie. I can't recall. A movie did a lovely interpretation of expressing that one is gone after one is forgotten. And there are many things I can't remember, but I always knew that the universe existed. I always knew that I existed before I had a body. How do I know that? It's embedded in the experience. It's like an OS. It's like an operating system. Like the phone does not operate at its full capacity without there being a ingrained system for those simple functions to work. Your screen lights up when you press a button. In my operating system, my soul lights up when love is the factor, engagement, pardon me. My soul lights up when there is love in the engagement that I am expressing. And a lot of the time, again, through my expression of discomfort, I have rationalized, because it is a rational thought, it is a thought process through logic, not through experience. It is, I am working on coming to terms with this as an understanding. Love is the answer regardless. And those who are acting as though they are engaging in a defense have fear of loss of love or lack thereof. They are explaining themselves through the space of, I do not want to lose what I have, or I do not want to reiterate loss again based on my previous experience. I am trying so hard to go back to a space that says that love is the first thing that happens in engagements. But I am reminded love is the first thing that happens in these engagements. My definition of vulnerability does not define vulnerability. That's a colloquial usage of the word. It is based in my objective experience. It's a very objective perspective. I tell people all the time, I think they're amazing. And they go, thank you for the compliment. And I go, it's not a compliment, it's an objective perspective. It's an objective perspective. I acknowledge you are amazing. That's the sun is amazing, the sky is amazing, buildings are amazing, technology is amazing. I acknowledge that you exist in the same regard. And I have done little to remind myself, this vessel, the device that I am using, that I am amazing. I'm consistently brought down by those around me. I'm consistently, due to culture, teased and joked with and joked at, because it brings them pleasure to belittle those around them. Due to culture, due to experience, due to society. And I am not above this behavior. I have engaged in it. It was something I have engaged in. There are many out there who have been teased by me, bullied by me, subconsciously or consciously. From what I understand, there are many people who can communicate with me through the astral, regardless if I am intently aware or not. I do know that I am protected. I do know that regardless of how beaten or broken or dragged down that I may feel, my engagement tends to continue to profess that love is the answer. I continue to profess that love is the goal, that caring is the goal, that nurturing space is the goal. To steward those that exist under my umbrella. I can use my house as an example with my garden plants. Again, the farm that I work on, the spiders that I house in my apartment. And there are many, because they keep having babies, so I keep finding different variations and sizes of small spiders. And they live here now. And I don't kill them. Not on purpose. I have accidentally rolled over many. I've accidentally swept many off of my leg, not knowing. When I am asleep, I am unaware of all of the movements that I make. And that can be a point in itself. I could end on the note of, we are currently asleep. And we are currently moving through the subconsciousness. And we as a whole continue to move that way, regardless of the information that presents itself to us. Regardless of the accounts that we have that say that love is the answer. We continue moving from a place where love is not the answer, or it is not the first, or it is not the only, or it is not the all. And that's okay. Not because I want it to be okay, because this is perfect as is. this experience currently, where we exist. There are many, many multiverses that exist out there outside of this one. There are many layers of reality that exist. There are many spectrums of light. There are many sounds that I have no control over hearing, understanding, or being able to perceive. There are many of those. What I can do is work with this one. What I can do is use this vocal range, this sound, this wavelength, this being, this concentrated light to continue to be bright in spaces where we would otherwise be blind. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the displeasure. I'm grateful for the pleasure. I'm grateful for the discomfort. I'm grateful for the comfort. I'm grateful to know that I'm alive. I'm grateful that there are those that hear this message. I'm grateful that there are those who continue to find themselves in the midst of all the rest of it, all the rest of us. Continue to remember that this is all one. I love you. As I talk to myself in this space, as I hear my own voice, as I profess deep and unbridled love to myself, I love you. And I could love you no more if you were my child. How that love comes out of us and how we interpret it when we're engaging will be immensely different based upon rules and regulations brought to us by society. It doesn't negate the fact that I love you. And I will always love you regardless, because in this moment, this time, this space, the vibration I put out is love. And I don't know if you'll receive it or how you'll receive it, but I know that if you do receive me, I'm sending you love. So Bear, if you ever hear this again, so esteemed viewer / audio listener, you hearing this, all is well. Always, always. ALL space WAYS, comma ALWAYS. Even if we don't enjoy it, even if it does not bring about the sensation of pleasure. Catbug says, everything is okay. I'm content with this moment. I'm content with this knowing. Yeah.